do you think that this war that's going on now will lead to Iran having another regime change?
Quite possibly. It has probably been accompanied by some clandestine information sent out to resistance groups that the United States will back you with communications organization, supplies, and weapons and ammunition. And that would give them an opportunity to rise up. You've got a median age in the low mid-30s over there in Iran, and that encourages an energy reservoir of those who are needed to pull off a regime change or a revolution. That's a good thing. And remember, this place is an area where years ago it was on the forefront of westernization in the Mediterranean. The Shah was trying to bring Iran into the fold of Europe, Asia, and the Americas in terms of being advanced and getting more secular. So you have a bunch of people who are being oppressed to get them to go along with what's going on, because they get snatched out of their homes after midnight and never seen again.
Iran. So I want to point to this: Iran's power in the Middle East, because Iran was supplying Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, all of those other Middle Eastern countries, with food trade, dates, oil, and stuff like that. So Iran is a major power player and stronghold of the Middle East. So
it wasn't supplying Saudi Arabia with fuel. Saudi Arabia was a place that was independent of that pressure.
Other trades.
But military pressure, is extreme. Iran has been a fanatical regime that has been led by religious fanatics. And it has put a lot of its money in weaponry and being able to raise hell, so to speak, without concern with how that may have negatively impacted the citizenry. So Iran is a factor that a lot of entities in the Middle East have to put up with. That's why I said there is a delicate detente over there, where Israel, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and through them other entities will not shoot each other, because they have a problem that is a worse one with Iran. Now, that being the case, everybody's got a vested interest in keeping Iran down, so we're not offending any of our other Arab allies by doing what we did. They're glad we're willing to take the blame, take the heat, so to speak. Big Brother has stepped in to take the heat.
Because other Middle Eastern countries, or Arab countries, were rely on Iran for certain trades, dates, and other things. However, we do business with Saudi Arabia, we do business with Qatar, we do business with them. So I think with the U.S., Israel coming into Iran, going to war and winning, will benefit the surrounding Middle Eastern countries, correct? Because we already doing business with them, so we don't have to rely on Iran.
The young monarch in Saudi Arabia was not supposed to hold that position. There was another sheikh that had worked out a deal with his father where he was going to be the high king. But that person, by the way, is interesting because he had dual citizenship. He was also a citizen of the United States, born here in the United States, went from kindergarten through grad school in California at public schools. His wife was an American citizen, and so were all of his children.
Mhm.
And that person was likely to be the High King of Saudi Arabia. And he also ran the counterintelligence section of the Saudi espionage units. So he, by the way, was the one that was on that airplane that left the day after 9/11 that some were hollering should have been detained. So you don't want to detain an American citizen who's high up in the Saudi government and is running counterintelligence in a fashion that greatly benefited the United States, and who, by the way, had already warned the U.S. that 9/11 was about to occur. So that's an interesting thing. To see these things don't fit in with political drama and political showtime. So they aren't talked about. They shouldn't be talked about. But too many of the pundits and whatever get in with the cliches, the versions that have been intentionally put out there for the ignorant to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say ignorance, I'm just talking about in the technical sense right here of lack of knowledge, information, and understanding.
Right. So should Americans, well, no, let me stay over here in the Middle East real quick. The previous regime change in Iran, right? When the Ayatollah came into power.
In the early 70s and in the mid 70s and overthrew the Shah.
Right. And then, so you have this.
The Shah was a close ally of the U.S.
Mm-hmm. Right. And during that, in Iran, during that time, listen, people were living in peace over there. You had Jews, you had Muslims, living amongst each other. There was no issues. And I hear people saying Iran during that time was beautiful. It's still beautiful, but under that government, under that regime. But then, if it was so great, why didn't the United States step in to prevent that regime from falling?
Because they couldn't. Okay. It took them by surprise because they had let their intelligence apparatus go downhill. And you can see what happened when the Carter administration tried to pull off that rescue mission that failed so miserably because the military simply was not prepared to pull something like that off. Most of the aircraft, the helicopters, the refueling stations that were put out in the desert, they all failed to come through because the aircraft crashed, the stuff broke, and it was an absolute unmitigated disaster that probably cost Carter his re-election.
Oh, yes.
So we don't want that to happen again where we're so ill prepared. The other thing is, as far as the rest of the world is concerned, for the most part, the U.S. has been selling wolf tickets about what it's going to do and never does.
Right.
Obama drew the line in the sand a couple of times and didn't do anything when it got crossed. So we needed to gain credibility, and a lot of people are saying at last the United States is accepting its position as the world's top and saying we're going to have law and order, and I'm not carrying mace anymore, I'm carrying a nightstick and a large caliber gun on my hip with lots of spare ammo and a 12 gauge in the trunk and a carbine sitting up between the seats.
But see, Iran.
So let's get it on if you want to get out of order.
Iran is not Venezuela or any other country. Iran is fighting back. They struck Israel. They're striking Lebanon, Dubai, Kuwait. So they're not going to lay down easy.
No, they're not.
So it says
But they can't really hit back too hard because right now we still have a few anti-aircraft missiles and systems that can shoot down most all of what they send over, even from walking speed toy drones that have been converted to carry hand grenades. So we're doing pretty well, but the problem is, thanks to the Obama and the Biden administrations, we don't have what we really need in terms of ready ammunition to keep bringing to the fore. We gave away a lot of it to the Ukraine. We didn't make much of it. A lot of it was allowed to simply rot and deteriorate under the Obama and Bush administration. We have put most all of what we have available on station at various critical places or on board ships in their magazines, but that's all we've got. We don't have refills. So some of what's being shot up now is probably pulled out of the Pacific Ocean storage areas, not in those, but in the Pacific areas that we control.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in that region. So
we
are going to have to do something about that.
I want to just tell you a couple of updates. So the Strait, Strait, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. So it says the Strait of Hormuz has been closed, and any ship that tries to pass through it will be set on fire by Iran. The commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard coup said today. And the Strait of Hormuz connects to the Persian Gulf to the Arabian Sea. So you're talking about ships come in for trade and stuff like that, supplies or whatever.
Bluff.
Two Pentagon employees were injured in a drone strike in Bahrain. So they're hitting really civilian, these are surrounding countries that have nothing to do with what's going on. But Iran saying, listen, we are going to target your friendly countries, if you don't stop, I guess, targeting us. U.S. hits more than 1,250 targets in the first 48 hours. So Sunni versus Shiites, right? Because Iran is majority Shiites. The surrounding Arabian countries are majority Sunnis, and they have a long history.
That's been going back 1,400 years.
Right.
That's a fight. So it's long standing. And see, that's another reason why the Arabic countries in the area are not all that upset with what the U.S. is doing. They're getting a sigh of relief.
The other countries.
See, that Sunni Shiite. Yeah, that Sunni Shiite thing. So it's been long standing for more than 1,000 years.
Right.
And there's no way anything can be done about that. That's just like built-in hatred for each side for the other.
Well, can we say that about
you haven't had
Israel?
anybody?
We could say that about Jews and those certain Muslims.
The Sunnis are more tolerant. The Sunnis are more tolerant of Israel than the Shiites are. And as a matter of fact, as a pragmatic matter, which we've talked about alliances, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and Israel are all cooperating under the general direction and guidance of the United States in opposing that because everybody has a vested interest. That's like looking at a picture from World War II where you see Winston Churchill, Franklin Roosevelt, and Joe Stalin sitting next to each other at a conference looking chummy when they all hated each other, but they were trying to get Tojo, Benito, and Adolf, and they got them. Then you got the Cold War for 45 years following that, where everybody was at everybody's throat. And you had the KGB and James Bond with MI6, and you had CIA. And that's what was going on for a while. But you have to have these alliances when you can pick them up. And if you hold them long enough, look at what's happened between Germany, Japan, and the United States. Just about every American family is either possessed of one or a neighbor has one. Toyota, Mitsubishi, Nissan, Lexus, Infiniti, something made in Japan, or a Volkswagen, an Audi, a Mercedes, a BMW, a Porsche, you name it, made in Germany.
Mhm.
So from our deadliest enemies, they become our closest friends. Things like that happen.
Mhm.
We eat sushi and we like to deal with karate for the manly art of self-defense. And the Japanese like hot dogs, and baseball is now their national sport. So there is an intermix, and probably our closest alliance is with Japan. And instead of the Japanese Navy being our mortal enemies, we have regular exercises and we have officer exchange programs where American warships have Japanese officers on board and vice versa. And we have joint operations in the Pacific. So that's how close we've gotten. You look at Germany, and former Nazi Germany has the biggest concentration of American troops anywhere in the world except in some of the bases in the United States. So, yeah, things change.
I was going to ask you.
So, yeah.
Let me ask you this. Well, we know. I haven't heard much pushback from Congress. Not much. So just explain what military powers.
You wanted Cruz.
Wait, no.
You wanted Cruz.
What?
You wanted Cruz. Say, look, you goddamn fools, this is what you let in. You're about to get all these cities in America blown up because of your bullshit. So we're trying to clean it up so that doesn't happen. Now keep talking shit and block it, and you'll see America is going to blame the hell out of you for setting this disaster up.
But I want to.
And they look at it and go.
But I want to ask you.
And they just look at it. You show it to them, and they say, "Oh shit, what did we do?"
Okay, but I want to.
And they shut up. You notice they're quiet.
I know, but I want to ask you a specific question here. What power does President Trump have that he does not need approval from Congress, and what approval when it comes to war that he will need from Congress?
Well, okay. The War Powers Act of 1974 has some specific stipulations in there that after 60 days of him sending troops in some place, it's supposed to be reviewed by Congress. But I just told you there is a 250-year-old, well, not 250, 236-year-old thing in there, Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, requiring that the president at all times, one, enforce the law of nations, and two, pursue, eradicate, and suppress piracy wherever found in the world. And Article 6 that deals with ratified treaties being the supreme law of the land, that says hijacking airplanes, etc., is piracy. So when it deals with suppression of so-called terrorism as per Al-Qaeda or ISIS type things, or Hamas, who is threatening to do something to those ships in the Suez Canal area, that's piracy by international law and by American treaty. So he doesn't need any authorization to suppress it or eradicate it, which means pulling alongside and firing a broadside from a super frigate like the USS Constitution 220 years ago, or you use the Gerald Ford super aircraft carrier to launch a strike by F-35s and wipe something out. Mm-hmm. See, we already have the authorization, and if you show it, it's been long established that he can do that. So if it's on the high seas, which we have Iran threatening to do, that's under Article 1, Section 8. He doesn't need a declaration of war to deal with that. Mm-hmm. So,
but if he wants to put troops on the ground, does he need Congress approval to put troops on the ground?
Well, what do you call the Marine Corps invasion back in 1806 when they took out the Barbary pirates? I believe they call it in the Marine Corps hymn, the Shores of Tripoli.
Okay.
Well, 220 years ago. So it's already been done, rubber stamped, copied, authorized, legitimated, and precedented.
Right.
Now,
Because you know what's funny?
I really don't think we're going to have an invasion as per what happened with Afghanistan. We might have some effective large-scale commando raids,
Right.
hit them, kick ass, and get out.
So if there's going to be troops on the ground, it's going to be the Marines, not the full army with troops.
Well, it might be Army. They have a thing called SOCOM, which is composed of Marines, Army, and Navy types, and they're pretty effective. People are scared of them.
Well, he's saying that he estimates this is only going to last between 4 and 6 weeks. I never heard of a
we'll
war.
probably run out of ammo by then as well.
I never heard of a war lasting 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, yes, it does. How long did the Gulf War I last?
Gulf? How long didn't that last?
Gulf War I, 1990. It lasted just a few months. They came in, bombed the hell out of the communications and transportation centers in Iraq, and they sent in a surprise raid of American forces, and they swept through Iraq. They whipped ass, kicked ass, and then they left. The message was sent.
Because we shouldn't even been there. But it's Afghanistan where they
Iraq, I can see. Well, I can see why the justification was there for Iraq, though there was more to it. But basically, we brought in, we did some interesting things. For the longest time, American military types, high and low, were, petrified of the Russian tank. T-64s, T-72s, T-80s, and we thought about the T-34 and so forth.
Okay, so 1 second. Because you saying Desert Storm lasted 90 days, but Trump is only saying 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, but 90 days was slow. It had to be a buildup. We don't need to build up under these circumstances. We don't have to transport M1 tanks from bases in Germany down to Saudi Arabia or places nearby where they could pull off the invasion of Kuwait and wipe Hussein's troops out there and push them back and then do an in-run maneuver through the desert that nobody but the Americans thought was possible because we had GPS then and they didn't.
Okay, but here's the thing.
Okay, the biggest tank battle in world history, arguably, took place during that 1990-91 fracas. That was the anyway, I won't get that gets too technical. But here's what I'm getting at. It was a big tank battle.
But here's what I'm getting at. Because listen, you're talking about 4 to 6 weeks. Listen, Russia is still in war with Ukraine. However, midterms is this year, and I'm sorry if Trump does not pull out a victory of some sort in 4 to 6 weeks or 5 to 6 weeks, they're going to lose in the midterms. And then if they do, let me finish. If Democrats control the House and the Senate, or the House, then they're going to try and impeach Donald Trump next year. So maybe I'm getting too far ahead of myself. What I'm saying is, I think he's going to have to win whatever he's doing over there in Iran in order to save his presidency and to win in the midterms.
He's already won it. See, this is political drama. You drag out what you've already done, so it puts on a good show. And nobody is put in any high jeopardy by missiles getting put in or smart bombs being dropped from our latest crop of combat aircraft. There's nobody in the world that has anything that can stand up to that. Those three old, they're 45-year-old designs, 50-year-old designs, some F-15Es, 3 of them got shot down by friendly forces by accident. So they can be intercepted and shot down, but that was by friendly forces using our help.
What that got to do with the
So
midterms?
other than, well, what that is nobody's in jeopardy except the Air Force getting to have some live fire exercises and perfecting their technique and seeing which one of their current crops of untested officers can stand up to it.
What that got to
That's
do with
what it's
winning
about.
what that got to do with the midterm election?
Because no, there aren't going to be any boots on the ground except for a raid. There's not going to be an extended presence for 20 years in an ill-designed mess trying to get Halliburton the contract rights to oil exploitation of Iraq and getting ensnared in a mess in Afghanistan, where we had been there for 200 years.
Okay, say if he does not put no boots on the ground, he does not put boots on the ground, but in 5 to 6 weeks, if he doesn't pull out some type of victory, the Democrats are going to use that narrative to win elections.
Look, it's called 200 years, 150 years ago, 120 years, it would have been called, quote, gunboat diplomacy, unquote. In other words, you send a shallow draft modern warship with modern cannon on it up a river, blow the hell out of the natives, and say, okay, this is a small taste of what you get. We won't be so polite and nice the next time we come back. And they go, okay, we get the message. You see, that's what he's doing. He's taking out infrastructure. He's destroying the communications and transportation net that they have in Iran.
I get all that, but the only thing I'm saying here
But that's all he has to do.
But the only thing I'm saying, if he does not, listen, everything that you saying that he's trying to do, if he is successful at that and don't win the midterms, that all those victories the Democrats will benefit from if they win the midterms and if they win in 2028.
They won't. They won't, because the way it plays out militarily is we've already won. But what we're doing is doing a cleanup thing. The extended time that he's talking about we are over there is what is a militarily feasible amount of time to blow the hell out of the Iranian communications, transportations, and supply net. So you destroy their logistics, you destroy and disrupt their command structure, you destroy their centers of operation, and you take out their nuclear capacity. And then you say, okay, now we kicked ass, what you gonna do about it? You ran out of ammunition too. And the extent of it is as though our stocks of ammo are running low. The time I'm looking at seems calculated to say, if you want to put up any kind of resistance to this, we've calculated this is all of the ammo you have. So you will run out before we run out. So let's go at it. You either surrender or you get your ass kicked.
One last question on this. Epstein files, right? No one isn't talking about Epstein's files anymore. So this U.S.-Iran war, is this a distraction so that people can stop talking about the Epstein files? I don't hear any Democrat.
No, it's not.
Wait, let me finish. I don't hear any Democrat or Republican talking about who they're going to subpoena next. All that ceased on the 28th. So no one isn't talking about Epstein files, right? And I think there's going to be no arrest. There's going, Prince Andrew got arrested.
They're going to be arrested, but
ain't nobody. They're not going to revisit the Epstein files. This war is taking over all the headlines. No one cares anymore.
Look. What if I told you? What if I told you about it? The Epstein file mess it's significant, but it's a distraction. And the purpose of the distraction was so nobody paid attention to what is going on now that was building it up. When Trump said, all right, let's go on it. So now it's no longer hanging in the shadows where the Epstein file obscures what's going on back there in the dark corners. It's out in the open. So the Epstein files basically have no utility for the side that was trying to use them. Now it can go back into...
I think it's in reverse.
No, it's not.
I think that this war is a distraction from the Epstein files because
no.
Let me just say this. I believe there are powerful men in those files that we haven't even heard of just yet. We don't know yet.
So what?
And they do not
So
want
what?
it to get out because Trump did say this. If you keep poking this bear with who's in the files, it could possibly collapse our financial institutions or the stock
Oh,
market.
yeah, that's
So
nonsense.
this is
That's
I think
nonsense.
this war is a distraction of who's in those files that have not come out yet.
No. It's the other way around. The Epstein files have absolutely nothing to do with the economy. It has nothing to do with our military preparedness. It has nothing to do with the price of tea at a grocery store. It doesn't have a damn thing to do with it. It is a distraction. It's some perverts who are in power. The message: find out who they are and turn their asses out. That's about all it impacts. This stuff is, as I said, there are some implanted, very high explosive devices that will make 911 look like a Mickey Mouse event at Disneyland compared to what is to come. This was a strike to take the leadership out that would have said go. And this is also to serve as a warning for their replacements who might say go. And it also provides the impetus for a regime change, which will wipe the problem out. If you can't do anything else, destroy the pipeline. So if you have no fuel to burn, you don't have any flames. So we are on squares all the way around. This is what the Epstein stuff was supposed to be about, because the silly Democrats were trying to deal with social experiments, entitlement, DEI rather, and they were using Epstein to distract attention when the truth of the matter is it's likely to be their people who get really caught up in it. Now, it's important in terms of revealing wrongdoing and perversion that has been festering in the background for too long. But in the scheme of things, it doesn't do anything to alter anybody's life, but this does. This is a problem where the whole world is being held hostage to an extent by some radicals who don't mind dying to make a point. Now, that is what's been out there, and the rest of the world is saying, hey, wow, somebody needs to come in and kick butt and stop this. And that's what we've done. And the 5 weeks he's talking about is about how long it'll take to feasibly destroy the targets. You can map out an air campaign. The air campaign is a success because we did it. They haven't been able to score anything but minor collaborative damage out there with their efforts to strike back. They're talking a good game, but they haven't done much. The casualty count is small. This used to be something that would happen in a day or two in London during the Blitz or in Tokyo in 1944, 1945. This is crazy. So, I mean, it's bad, but, I mean, in the scheme of things, it's minor. So we're worried about a bunch of perverts molesting children, which is criminal. This is talking about international and the interaction between great nations who can obliterate a good part of the planet with either the arsenals, nuclear arsenals they either have or they're trying to get. That's what's at stake. These are serious matters. So I would say the Epstein files are important in terms of giving the 411 or the basic information to the American public about what's been going on while they've been running around trying to be pampered poodles who need to be taken care of. This is a revelation as to what your caretakers are really about. But in the scheme of things, as to the immediate impact or the long-term impact, it's nothing but a Hollywood scandal. And it's the type of thing that on a somewhat smaller scale I used to deal with all the time when I'd have perverts charged with some kind of sex crime coming in front of me for trial or sentencing. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the way I look at it, but maybe people get all worked up because it's sensational. And 50 years ago, it would have been okay. But, now we've been conditioned by tabloid journalism to become normal. And we're looking at, oh, my God, it's the most important thing going, and what are the huge conspiracies? Well, yeah, all of the above, but You are being distracted from the more serious things which are happening right now. Why you have to have that star in the upper corner of your driver's license. Why inflation is so bad. Why we have this mess in the Middle East that might go nuclear at any given moment. Why we've got a situation where China's saying, screw you, we don't believe you'll stand up to us. We're going to take back Taiwan, and there's not a damn thing you will do about it. See, we have that. We have this thing with terrorist cartel members, people with incurable diseases and all sorts of things in this country right now. And Americans losing jobs and benefits and huge tax burdens they have assumed because somebody decided to break the law, sponsor the breaking of the law, because they didn't want to lose control and be less able to promote their agendas. We've got a bad situation going. And we've just been putting up with it because we didn't care. And Epstein was the type of gossipy scandal that we just love to focus on instead of those things that really count. It's bad. And it's time we got over that and said, okay, let's get back to the essentials. What's really going on here? We got upset by 911, but that is a small thing compared to what's about to happen if something isn't done to cut it off. And when you have ICE out there in Minnesota and you've got Democrats jumping up and down with their clown show saying the most important thing in the world is to get ICE out of the picture. Remember, they're trying to stop this. And what else are we finding out? The intelligence community has discovered that thanks to this bull by Governor Walz and other folk in Minnesota fomenting this fraud and misappropriation of funds, we have between 180 and 260 million dollars known to have gone to Al-Qaeda and ISIS to fund just exactly why we had to have this attack.
All right.
So, I mean, it's broad scale and we just ignore it like fools.
All right.